Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Bailey, and I'm a Benefits and Trust Administration Supervisor with the Achieve It Family Trust. I am also a certified work incentive practitioner. So what that means is I assist individuals with disabilities who want to work or they are currently working, understand how that employment income or that earned income will impact their means tested government benefits. So I kind of help them develop a plan. Once they start working, what will this do to my supplemental security income? What will this do to my waiver services, my HUD housing, my SNAP benefits? So I kind of lay out a plan moving forward so there are no surprises or potential overpayments in their future once they start working while receiving these benefits. Today, I'm just going to go over the Social Security disability benefits and medical assistance. This is a basic interview or overview. It's a basic view, but it's also from a future planning standpoint. A lot of individuals come to the trust, whether it be for the special needs component or just the benefits counseling. They come into large sums of money or a sum of money, and they want to understand, are the benefits they're receiving means tested? Meaning, is that money going to kick them off their benefits? They also want to understand if mom and dad are leaving their children monies through estate planning. Can this child receive these monies outright, or should we shelter it into a special needs trust because they might lose their benefits? We also have instances where individuals, whether we're working with through the benefits planning piece or the special needs trust planning piece, where we identify someone that's not receiving a benefit they're actually entitled to receive. Once we kind of peel back the layers, we begin working with them and we say, oh, you're receiving supplemental security income, but did you ever think about jumping onto a childhood disability benefit off of a parent work history? We find that more often than not, once we start to work with these individuals, that they're probably not being reviewed for specific benefits they're entitled to receive. I would like to say that I'm going to stand up here and make Social Security Medicaid fun. That's not going to happen today. So this is just going to be, like I said, an overview and kind of tied into the future planning component. So here's the agenda. For Social Security benefits, we're going to look at three different types. So we're going to look at Social Security disability insurance, SSDI, also known as disability insurance benefit, childhood disability benefit, and formerly known as a disabled adult child. You still see both out there, but they're leaning more towards the childhood disability benefit terminology, and supplemental security income. For medical assistance, we're going to go over the categories that are commonly seen in future planning and benefits planning. So that includes medical assistance through SSI, medical assistance for adults through the M.A.W.D category, children with special needs or the PH95 medical coverage, and medical assistance for workers with disabilities, otherwise known as M.A.W.D. And we're going to cover the Medicare Savings Program buy-ins, which would be the qualified Medicare beneficiary and the specialized Medicare beneficiary SLIMB, and Waiver. So with Social Security disability benefits, we're going to look at Title II and Title 16 benefits. But before we do that, we're going to look at the Social Security's definition of a disability. So before anybody can jump onto any of the Social Security disability benefits, they have to have their disability verified first. So Social Security defines a disability as the inability to do any substantial gainful activity by reason of any medically determinable physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to result in death, or which has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. So that's their criteria. When they are reviewing these individuals for these disability benefits in both Title II and Title 16 programs, that is the basis of in which they are reviewing. The impairment, duration, and any work limitations are the claimant's burden to prove. So what that means is that that's through the process, the application process. There are a couple hundred disability impairments that the Social Security, if you have that, you can get through the door to get a disability benefit with a limited medical review. It's called a compassionate allowance. Everyone else, pretty much through the application process, has to show the work limitations when they're applying to get on a disability benefit. As an adult, you have to show that it is impacting your ability to work gainfully. If it is a minor, they're looking at standard deviations compared to other peers. So again, the two types of Social Security programs we're going to review are Title II benefits and Title 16 benefits. Title II benefits is Social Security disability insurance and childhood disability benefits, CDB. Title 16 benefits, supplemental security income. So Social Security disability insurance, that is an entitlement benefit that, once disability is verified, they look at your work history to see if you have enough work orders to qualify. Childhood disability benefit is once disability is verified prior to the age of 22, do you have do you meet the criteria to jump onto your mom or dad's work history if mom and dad are already deceased, retired and collecting a benefit, or disabled and collecting a benefit themselves? So those are the two entitlement benefits we'll review. Title II benefits also include other benefits such as Social Security retirement. You paid into these programs, they're entitlements. Title 16, Supplemental Security Income. This is not an entitlement benefit. This is a means tested needs-based program. So this is based on income once disability is verified and resources as well. So an overview of Social Security disability benefits, SSDI, also known as a disabled disability insurance benefit, or DIB, is SSDI is an insurance-based disability program that provides cash benefits to insured workers who have become disabled and unable to engage in work activity, producing income above a certain annual amount. So first, to get on, you may be considered for this benefit, you must meet Social Security's definition of a disability. So back to that definition prior, and then also showing the work limitation. So it's an entitlement benefit, and it's based on your FICA or your SECA withholding. So your federal insurance contributions, and if you're self-employed, your self-employment contributions. And you must have insured status as a worker for an specified period of time. So these they use that as insured status based on credits or quarters of coverage. So in order to get a credit towards, you could get up to 4 credits a year. You'd have to earn up to $1,730 in each quarter to qualify as a credit for up to $6,920 in 2024 to get your 4 credits for the year. And again, it's based on FICA contributions, not economic need. This isn't like supplemental security income. This is an entitlement benefit that someone is paid into. It's not a means-tested benefit. So SSDI, there's a common misbelief that when people come to us for benefits counseling or for the trust, they're like, I need to shelter resources, I'm receiving SSDI. Well, SSDI is not a means-tested benefit, meaning you can have resources and still jump onto SSDI through your own work history or through a childhood disability benefit through your parents' work history without penalty. The issue comes that there may be another benefit in the picture that has the resource limit. So that's what I mean when we start peeling back the layers. Yeah, that particular category does not have a resource limit, but you could be receiving medical assistance or waiver, which does. And more often than not, it's that waiver component that we come up to where, the need to shelter funds comes into play. It was Social Security disability. There isn't a income limit, but there is what they call a work activity limit. So that's what's known as substantial gainful activity. So you could either be not working to qualify for the benefit or earning less than that SGA. And basically what substantial gainful activity means is it is a work activity limit. They don't like to say it's an income limit because they're looking at work activity as a whole. And it describes a level of work activity and earnings. This work activity involves doing significant physical or mental activities or a combination of both. So to be eligible for disability benefits, a person must be able to engage in SSI upon initial review for the benefit and then for ongoing review. So once they are awarded the benefit, then they need to be mindful of the substantial gainful activity threshold of $1,550 a month for non-blind, $2,590 a month for blind individuals. And I put the PALMS references in these categories, so if you want more information on them, you can look them up on, through Google. And this applies to earned income only. So SGA, they're not looking at other benefits that are in the picture that are considered unearned income, like pensions. If you're dual eligible, if you're receiving SSI, they're looking at just earned income to review for SGA. So that is income through personal effort. So Social Security disability benefits have a Medicare component. So once an individual has received SSDI for 2 years and has 24 cash payments, they automatically qualify for Medicare even if they are under the age of 65. I get calls a lot where individuals are calling, I don't understand why I'm eligible for Medicare, and I'm not 65, and you kind of look at, okay, you're receiving Social Security disability insurance, and you probably are at your 24 cash payments, so now you can jump onto the Medicare coverage. And like SSDI, Medicare does not have a resource limit. It is an entitlement benefit. You paid into that. But they may have other means tested benefits, such as medical assistance or waiver, which they will have to be mindful of when it comes to potentially sheltering resources. So the childhood disability benefit, is, you could see it also as disabled adult child or an adult disabled child benefit. It's similar to Social Security disability benefits, but now you may not have, once disability is verified, the work quarters to qualify for Social Security disability, but you may be able to jump onto a parent work history if specific criteria are met. So if the individual wants to be reviewed for a childhood disability benefit, they would have to be unmarried, 18 years or older, meet the Social Security disability criteria, but the onset of disability must have occurred prior to the age of 22. And once that child is reviewed, once disability is verified, then they can claim on a parent work history if the parent is retired and collecting a retirement benefit, the parent is deceased, or the parent is disabled and collecting a disability benefit. So if they can't qualify on their own, childhood disability benefit could be an option. So with childhood disability benefits, substantial gainful activity, just like Social Security disability, also applies. So they are looking at that SGA limit when you're initially onboarding, and they are looking at the ongoing that limit, that $1,550. You want to that work activity limit you want to remain under. There is no resource limit. You can have money in the bank and still qualify for childhood disability benefit, but again, there could be other benefits in the picture. Once an individual has received a childhood disability benefit for 2 years, like Social Security disability, 24 cash payments, then they qualify for Medicare, even if they are under the age of 65. So that is another benefit of having the childhood disability benefit, is that you qualify for Medicare after 24 cash payments. I will put a special note in here about a marriage consideration. So if you are a childhood disability benefit recipient, and you marry anyone that is not a Title II recipient, you forfeit the benefit. So you will lose the benefit forever. There's no jumping back on. If you separate, if you are a child with disability, you need to marry another Title II. So that's retirement, Social Security disability. So if you marry someone that's not receiving a benefit, or you marry a Supplemental Security Income recipient, then you lose that childhood disability benefit. So $1 million idea out there, a dating app for Title II benefits people. Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, which we'll cover here shortly. If you are receiving that prior to receiving the childhood disability benefit, let's just say you're receiving SSI, that's a means tested needs-based benefit, that's income and resource based, and then you jump onto a parent retires and starts collecting a retirement benefit, and you jump onto that childhood disability benefit. So supplemental security income comes with Medicaid coverage that will not be lost due to a loophole. So if you are an SSI and then something occurs with a parent retiring or passing, and then you jump onto this childhood disability benefit, you can maintain your Medicaid coverage as long as you meet the other SSI criteria, which we'll cover here shortly under the SSI piece. Is there any questions about the disability or childhood disability component before we move on to SSI? No? Yeah.
The parents' income isn't involved here, but we just trying to remove this. Explain. Yes. Yeah, I can look.
She says she wants to talk to you in person later.
Okay.
Thank you. It's okay.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to review supplemental security income benefits, or known as SSI. This is a Title 16 benefit. So what is supplemental security income? It is a government program that provides cash and medical assistance benefits to individuals meeting specific criteria. So this could be based on age if they are 65 or older, a permanent disability. We're going back to that disability definition at the beginning. So it must meet Social Security's disability criteria, or blindness. So statutory blindness, and I put the acuity test in there as well. Which is less than or equal to 20/200 in the better eye with the use of a corrective lens, field of vision less than 20 degrees. And I put the PALMS reference in there because there's more information on that acuity test in that specific category. So supplemental security income is a needs-based benefit. It is based on chronic disability and low income. This is not an entitlement benefit. You didn't pay into this. You're getting this because you need it. You fit one of the criteria above, or you are low income. So the 2024 federal benefit rate, which an individual could receive for supplemental security income now, is $943 a month for an individual and $1,415 a month for a couple. So if the individual is receiving a reduced 1/3 reduction, meaning in-kind support maintenance reduction, then instead of the $943, they will receive the $629. So the in-kind support maintenance reduction they could receive as a result of being over 18 and receiving SSI and living at home and not contributing to household expenses. So if they're not paying rent, if they're not contributing towards the utilities, then Social Security will reduce them 1/3 because they are living at home and not contributing to the expenses. Or if someone else is paying your rent. So if you are an SSI recipient over the age of 18 and mom and dad, brother, sister, whomever is paying your rent, Social Security will reduce you 1/3 as a result of that because it's considered unearned income in their eyes. So they will give you that benefit reduction because you yourself are not applying it towards your shelter and utility cost. If you are receiving supplemental security income, and depending on your living situation, you usually always qualify what they call a state supplementary payment, which is known as SSP, and it's a cash payment to the to include with SSI, and it accounts for various costs of living from one state to another. So if you are receiving supplemental security income, you are receiving that $22.10 in addition to that $943 for a single individual, or $33.10 for an addition to the $14.15 for a couple. So there are strict asset and income guidelines to initially qualify and maintain the SSI benefit ongoing. So the resource limit is $2,000 for an individual and $3,000 for a couple. So the beneficiary, and the rule of thumb with this is the beneficiary must have all of the following for it to count as a resource. And that's ownership of interest in their property, a legal right to access the property, and the legal ability to use the property for personal support and maintenance. So that's the criteria that Social Security is looking at on whether or not this will be counted as a resource towards that $2,000 limit. This includes checking, savings, rep pay accounts, bonds, CDs, stocks, bonds, pension plans, retirements, etc. Excluded resources for supplemental security income is you can own a house, you can own a vehicle, and irrevocable burial reserves with a cash value of $1,500. So you can have burial reserves and not have that count against your SSI eligibility. You can own a vehicle and not have that count, and you can own a house and not have that count against your eligibility. So income limits include both earned and unearned income. Supplemental security income, once you are awarded the benefit, Disabilities Verified, now they're going to see if you qualify for the actual full payment a month, and that they're looking at all other income that's in the picture. Wait, and go backwards. So the types of income that Social Security is looking at is any unearned income. So if you are receiving a Title II benefit, such as Social Security disability, or dual eligible, that is going to reduce your SSI payment. Pensions, annuities, unemployment benefits, any other income in the picture will reduce that benefit. Earned income, so this is income received through personal effort. This, through Achieva, through our benefits counseling program, is the reason why people come to us for assistance. They are working or thinking about working, and they're going to, they need to understand how that earned income is going to impact their SSI. So we kind of develop a plan with them to, help them understand this is what you can anticipate based on your wages, what your SSI payment will be. And we can help them kind of avoid any overpayments that may result, we assist with, reporting the wages and helping them understand how that goes moving forward. There is deemed income. So Social Security sees deemed income as unearned income from a parent to a child. So if a parent, if the child is on supplemental security income and they are, under the age of 18, mom and dad's income and resources count. So it's deemed from parent to child. Or spousal deeming, if the SSI recipient is married, that spouse's income is going to impact their SSI payment. There's that in-kind support maintenance deduction again. So that's unearned income received to SSI recipients in the form of shelter assistance by anyone living within or outside their household. So they're over 18, they're living at home with mom and dad not contributing, they get that reduction, or someone is paying their room and shelter for them, they get that reduction. As of September 2024, they removed food from that calculation. So prior to that, if you were getting food assistance, not through SNAP, but if somebody was paying for you to get additional assistance, like your sister gives you $200 a month for food, or your mom and dad are giving you money, that is considered unearned income and you would receive a reduction in benefit. They have since removed that. So they're now only looking at that shelter assistance for the in-kind support and maintenance. So just overview, SSI is a means-tested and needs-based benefit. It is affected by both earned and unearned income, but not all income received is considered by the Social Security Administration. There are deductions and exclusions. So when you are working or receiving an unearned benefit, unearned income benefit such as SSD in addition to your SSI, Social Security is automatically applying exclusions. So for instance, a general income exclusion, $20 is first applied to any unearned income received. So if you're receiving SSD in addition to your SSI, they do not count the first $20 of that SSDI, and it will not, and the remaining amount will impact your SSI payment. The same applies with the earned income exclusion, but Social Security is disregarding the first $65 of your earned income and then halving that amount and counting that remainder against your benefit total. So here's an example of general and earned income exclusion. So this is primarily what we do when an individual comes in and they are working and receiving SSI and they want to understand what that employment income is going to do. So in this example, Sarah begins working at Target part-time and she's earning $800 a month, and that's gross. We always start with the gross amount. Sarah's, in this case, is worried that she will lose her SSI benefit. That is a common misconception with SSI recipients, that if they immediately begin working, they're immediately dinged and lose their benefit. And that's not the case. These exclusions are put in place are work incentives. Social Security wants you to work. So if you are an SSI recipient, you begin working, this is put into place to help you kind of maintain the benefit while you're working, and you could eventually work off the benefit rolls or just keep it balanced moving forward. So in this example, Sarah's getting $800 a month. She will receive exclusions from her gross income of that $800 a month to determine her countable income. So Social Security is looking at that countable income, what they will use to determine your benefit payment once they apply those exclusions. So in this case, that $800 that Sarah is getting, she'll have that general and earned income exclusion applied. So that $20 plus the $65, which is $85, will reduce Sarah's countable income to $715. And I put the equation there. Since there's no earned income present, Sarah's only working. She's not receiving any other income. That general income exclusion will then apply to the earned income. So that's why it's 85 instead of just 65 as it would be if she was receiving other income in the picture. So from that point, Social Security will half that remaining balance. Once that 85 is deducted from that $75, the $715 is divided by 2, and you get $357.50, and that will be the countable income against Sarah's SSI amount. So her initial payment would have been $943, which is total federal benefit rate, but it would be adjusted to $585 once they deducted that $357.50. So with these exclusions, they help maximize her financial outcome each month. Because if Sarah was just receiving $943 in SSI benefits and not working, she would just be receiving $943. But with working and the exclusions, then her total monthly income will be $1,385.50. So when you kind of review that with families, they're surprised because it takes so long to onboard on the SSI sometimes that any topic of work is just shunned. They don't want the individual to work. They're like, you have no idea what we've been through to get on this benefit. We don't want anything in the picture that's going to impact this. I get these young individuals that come to me like, I want to work. Can you please explain to my parents how this can happen? And this is kind of the example I give them. So I'm like, from just receiving $943 a month in SSI, you can take that reduction, still get the benefit and the perks that come with the SSI, and get that. And you have all that gross income from your employer, and then you get that total amount as opposed to what you would just be receiving as an SSI recipient. So there it is, kind of laid out. Again, $800 gross income from Target. You get that general income exclusion, and then they apply that earned income exclusion. They're looking for your countable earned income, and then that's what they deduct from the total federal benefit rate that every SSI recipient will receive, unless there are reductions, to get the adjusted SSI payment amount. So supplemental security income and medical assistance. So Pennsylvania is a 1634 state. So what that means is anyone receiving SSI automatically qualifies for medical assistance. And we know the medical assistance is a payer of last resort. So if there's any other insurance coverage in the picture, such as employer, that's a primary. Medical assistance will be secondary. But in the state of Pennsylvania, you automatically qualify for SSI or Medicaid. You're meeting the financial criteria to qualify for the benefit. So as long as you're receiving even $1 of SSI, you get that Medicaid coverage that comes with it. So supplemental security income and transition ages. So what happens when an individual turns 18 and they were receiving SSI as a minor? So there's a redetermination. This really isn't a reapplication. It kind of happens automatically behind the scenes of Social Security. The individual is reviewed under the SSA adult disability criteria as opposed to the minor once they turn 18. Parental deeming ends. So if once they turn 18, they were reviewed on their own record, their own budget. Mom and dad's income will no longer impact them or their resources. Their resources and income will impact their eligibility for SSI once disability is verified. They look at the disability first, then they'll look at the financials to determine if the individual qualifies in that regard. There's that receiving supplemental security income and living at home. We're looking at that in-kind support and maintenance deduction. If the individual wants to avoid that, a rule of thumb would be to establish some sort of room and board contract once they turn 18 and they are living at home, where they pay something towards household expenses to maintain their SSI full federal benefit rate. So if they don't and they're living at home and mom and dad are just kind of providing everything for them, they're going to get that reduction from Social Security. So a lot of families take the reduction. They're okay with this situation and scenario. Some families are like, well, let's see if we can get to back up to the 943. How do we do the room and board contract? And then they'll come to us and we'll kind of lay that out for them. We have an example contract we use and we administer that to the families. So how do you apply to Social Security disability benefits in general? Applications could be made online or at the local Social Security office. So I put the link there for a field office locator where you type in your zip code and it will tell you which office you would report to. You can call Social Security to schedule a phone or in-office appointment. I always recommend calling ahead and not just showing up to the office. They are backlogged right now, so just showing up, you could be sitting there and not be seen at all. Your time's important, their time's important, so I would recommend calling to schedule an appointment. So you can apply online. I have the link there as well for the benefit. And just to be mindful, the disability applications can take 4 to 6 months to process. It's considered the 5-step sequential evaluation process for disability determination. Any disability benefit you're applying for gets that 5-step process. So that's why it takes about 4 to 6 months to come up with the decision. And you want to document the impairment and limitations. When I meet with families about the application process, then they're like, well, I don't know what happened. I don't know why it was denied. And I'm looking at the medical evidence that was submitted. I'm seeing that, all the places that they requested the documentation from was not received, or I'm just seeing a lot of the same patterns of the listing of the diagnoses or the impairment and nothing else really showing how that impairment limits their daily activity or their ability to work. And that's really what Social Security wants to see. They tell me all the time that it has to tell a story. So all that paperwork combined really needs to show, all right, there is the disability, there is the daily activity limitations, which lead to the work limitations. And that's what they really want to see in that documentation. So if you are awarded Social Security benefit payments, you are awarded back to the date of application. So there's retroactive, you could get a retroactive payment as a result. So if you are an SSI recipient, there is that concern because there is a $2,000 resource limit. They give you money back to the day of application. You have a lump sum. You have time to spend that down. They give you 9 months to do something with that money. If you're an SSI recipient, they don't count it against that $2,000 resource cap right away. But right there for the future planning component, you can look at possibly sheltering it into a special needs trust or an ABLE account where after that 9 months ends, those monies will not be counted against your eligibility for SSI.
Is it still the case that the childhood disability benefit does not pay retroactively?
No, so you're right. So as far as I know, Social Security Disability and SSI, they pay you retroactively. I don't think that the childhood disability, I could verify that for you, but I think you might be correct on that, but unless anybody else knows. But SSDI, SSI pays retroactively. So what if you're denied the application? So you want to appeal. You have a 60-day deadline to appeal. And I put the first appeal step in there with the link, and it's called a request for reconsideration. So if you are denied, it's usually because there's not that disability documentation there to kind of verify the disability. Like I said, there are certain disabilities depending on severity, which will get you through the door right away with Social Security for a benefit payment. Everyone else has got to really get that, verify that they are unable to work as a result or limited work activity as a result of that, that disability or that impairment. So if you are denied, you can request for reconsideration. That's the first step in the appeal process. And that's when another worker looks at everything that that first worker looked at to determine whether or not they agree. You do have time to submit more information as a result of the request for reconsideration. So you can kind of pad what you had before, or you could see if anything is missing. You want to verify all that medical documentation was received. Like I said, I look at these notices of denial and I see that 4 of the offices they reached out to never got back to them. So there's missing documentation, which could have been essential in that decision. So it's more of that when we go through that reconsideration phase is pulling that documentation that wasn't received. And the appeals process has 4 levels. It begins with the reconsideration phase, then it goes into the hearing. At that point, it's before an administrative law judge. At the hearing phase, you want to have some sort of representation with you. At that point, it helps to have someone else looking at your case because it had been denied at the application process and at the reconsideration step. And then it goes through the appeals council and federal courts. Altogether, if you follow that all the way through, if you are not awarded your benefit until the very end at the federal court level, you're looking at 5 years of an appeal timeline from the first, the initial application onto the federal court piece of that application. So here's just some things to consider with Social Security disability benefits is disability must be verified first to be considered for either SSDI, CDB, or SSI. And once the disability is verified, then the applicant will be reviewed for this appropriate category. So if they are reviewed for SSDI, they must have the work credits to qualify for the benefit. There is no resource limit, but be mindful of substantial gainful activity. That's that work activity limit. And they may be receiving other benefits with a resource limit. They might be receiving waiver. Childhood disability benefits, same thing applies. Only here, disability verified prior to the age of 22, but does not have substantial work history to qualify for their own benefit. So they can possibly claim on a parent work history if the criteria is met. Mom and dad are disabled and collecting a benefit, retired and collecting a benefit, or deceased. No resource limit, but substantial gainful activity also applies, that work activity limit, and they may be receiving other benefits with a resource limit. So from a future planning perspective, they come into us, they have Social Security disability, childhood disability. That on itself, they don't necessarily have to shelter resources, but there are other benefits in the picture they may have to. Supplemental Security Income, once disability is verified and they are unable to claim on the SSDI or a CDB, they then have the financial test to see if they qualify for that needs-based means-tested benefit. Again, it's not an entitlement benefit. It is based strictly on need. There is the resource limit of $2,000. Does anybody have any questions overall about the Social Security benefits?
Matt, there's some questions online, if you don't mind. We have a question that says, for people on Ticket to Work, does the SSI remain the same or will it be reduced?
No, Ticket to Work is a work incentive program.
Okay.
So what that does is that it's basically doing what we're doing at Achieva with the benefits planning component, where we help that individual understand how that earned income is going to impact their means-tested benefits. So Ticket to Work itself won't impact benefit, but if they are working or they start working, that will, and they're on SSI, that will reduce their benefit amount. So Ticket to Work itself is a program which is helping them kind of enter the workforce and helping them understand, what this earned income can do to your SSI or your waiver or whatever benefit you're receiving. They're primarily looking at Social Security benefits. You'll still get that reduction in benefit if you're working, but the Ticket to Work itself is not a program that's going to reduce a benefit.
And Matt, there's another question. If moving interstate, does one need to start from the beginning of the Social Security application process?
So what was the first part of the question? I'm sorry.
So, and actually the person said, and are these benefits federal or determined by each state?
So they're federal benefits, but they're, they're state level. So they're determined, you have your local offices that will make that consideration.
And so she says, if moving interstate, does one need to start from the beginning of the Social Security application process?
No. If you move, you want to let them know you moved. That's essential, especially if you're receiving SSI. That is I see a lot of people that lose the SSI benefit because they don't have an updated address on file. But if you are moving, your office changes. So your where you would go for any renewals or any type of appeals would change. So you want to notify the Social Security office you are moving. If you move out of state, definitely notify them. But you don't have to start any application process over. Once it's a federal benefit, once you're in, you're in.
And one last question. At what age should an individual begin the process of learning what benefits they qualify for with regards to future planning?
So if they're a minor and they qualify for SSI, I think the future planning component really comes a lot with, once they turn 18 and they're looking at whether or not, if they were receiving SSI as a minor, if they're going to receive SSI as an adult, or can they possibly jump onto, if they're working, Social Security disability benefit or a childhood disability benefit. So usually around 18 is the time, if they're not already receiving a benefit, and that benefit may change under the adult criteria, is when they start looking at whether or not they can receive that, Social Security, those benefits. So there are transition ages. Okay. Anybody else?
Hi, Matt. My son receives SSDI under his own work record, and he stays under SGA. Some months that's a challenge, but we're under. Would I ever encounter, based on your experience, would I ever encounter where Social Security comes to me and wants to re-qualify him?
Yeah, so if you are on Social Security disability, you have continuing disability reviews, and then you have a work activity review. So usually a work activity review comes as a result of an individual receiving Social Security disability, and they are started working, or they're just working, or they change a job. And with that work activity review, it's a pretty detailed review where they're pulling pay stubs, they're looking at work activity, they're looking at daily activity, they're looking to see if that individual's disability has improved, or is it the same, and if they're working at that SGA. So continuing disability reviews, depending on the severity of the disability, can happen, I believe it's every 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5, or 5 to 7. That work activity review, if they're working, can pretty much come at any time. So if you get that, and that's something I can help with. So if you get that, I can give you my information. I can help you review. But yeah, so you will have times where you're going to have to submit pay stub documentation, even though you're submitting pay stubs every month for review.
Right.
You will have to go back and collect it all again with that work activity review. You're going to have to put if there's any workplace limitations or looking to see if there's any work incentives they can apply, or if the disability has improved and they don't necessarily qualify for the disability benefit anymore. They're looking at that SGA. If they're over that 1,550, they probably got to start looking at, other sort of work incentives, or if they're just going to work themselves off the benefit rolls altogether.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Is a room and board contract or something like that an option with an individual who either is or is going to be under guardianship?
You can, so if they have a guardian in place and they're living with the guardian on SSI, yeah, you would still have to have, because if they're living anywhere over the age of 18 and not contributing towards household expenses, if they're living in their own apartment, they're fine. They got that up, but if they're going to live with a parent or guardian, then you'd want to have some sort of room and board contract in place showing that they are contributing towards the household expenses, or some sort of room boarder agreement. The room boarder agreement basically looks at the individual's renting space. So it kind of excludes them of having interest in the home or anything along those lines, where Social Security reviews them as a renter, and then they bump that benefit back up. But yeah, in a guardian situation, if they're living with a guardian, you'd want to have a room and board contract in place as well, because they still need to be contributing to the household expenses somehow. Does that make sense? Was that, yeah.
Perhaps I'll learn more in the next session. I wasn't sure in what circumstances
Yeah.
a person under guardianship could have any kind of a contract. Here,
There would be a room and board. I mean, for the SSI benefit piece, there would have to be a room and board agreement for them to maintain the full federal benefit rate. So.
the guardian can sign. The guardian can actually.
Oh, is that, yeah, the guardian could sign. Sorry. Thank you, Amy. All right. So now we're going to move on to medical assistance, and these are common categories that are received, that we see through benefits planning or future planning through the Special Needs Trust. Just some medical assistance basics. You may also see this referred to as Medicaid. It is administered by the Department of Human Services. And even though there's several categories of medical assistance, there are two basic MA packages through those categories, and that's child and adult. So this is coverage for individuals with limited incomes who fit into specific groups. This can be the individual's only insurance coverage. It can only be receiving Medicaid. They could work with other insurances, for example, Medicare or employment, where it becomes the payer of last resort. So if you're a Medicare recipient, Medicaid's secondary. If you're receiving, if you're getting insurance for your employer, Medicaid is secondary. It is always payer of last resort. So with medical assistance, disability can be verified through several means. It can be done if you're receiving a Social Security disability benefit, or it can be done through DHS's medical review team, which is not as strenuous as a Social Security review. They are literally just reviewing you to get onto a specific category, medical assistance. They're not reviewing you to get onto Social Security benefits. It's just to get you placed into a category, medical assistance. For example, medical assistance with workers with disabilities, or that M.A.W.D that we'll cover here shortly. But there are two means to jump onto the disability-related categories: Social Security benefits recipient, or a review through the DHS medical review team if you are not receiving disability benefits. Most MA categories will have a resource and income limit. And income limits look at both earned and unearned income. So when you're looking at all these categories of medical assistance that have these limits, any income in the picture is going to count towards that income limit, both earned and unearned income. And several factors determine the MA category an individual can fall into. And this includes age, disability, income, and resources. And so I put a medical assistance handbook link there for review that has all these categories, kind of laying out all the rules and regulations and the income and resource guidelines. So the categories we're going to cover are medical assistance through SSI, which we briefly discussed before, medical assistance for adults ages 19 through 64. It's a MAGI category. Children with special needs or PH95 MA coverage, medical assistance for workers with disabilities, M.A.W.D. We're seeing more and more of this category as these individuals with disabilities begin to work, and they are working their way out of their current category medical assistance due to income and resources. M.A.W.D. is a work incentive that's put into place for that individual that would not necessarily qualify for Medicaid due to their income. And then there's the Medicare savings programs categories, which include the qualified Medicare beneficiary. And then we're going to briefly review waiver. So again, medical assistance or SSI, Pennsylvania is a 1634 state. So if you receive SSI cash benefit, you are also automatically receiving medical assistance. And so you have to meet SSA's disability and resource requirements. And parent and child income and resources count until the child turns 18. There will always be that $2,000 resource test unless that changes otherwise once they turn 18. There's no initial MA application or annual MA renewal necessary if you are getting Medicaid through SSI. So as long as you're qualifying for SSI, you get the Medicaid. A lot of the categories of medical assistance have annual renewals that are mailed out. And I think it's, I get calls all the time like, well, I'm never getting a renewal. Am I going to get terminated? And then we find out they're on SSI. I'm like, as long as you're getting the SSI, you don't need to worry about the Medicaid component or the application process. So the first category we're going to briefly review here is the medical assistance category M.A.W.D. And M.A.W.D means modified adjusted gross income. And it was implemented around the time that the Affordable Care Act was implemented. Prior to the Affordable Care Act, individuals on Medicaid primarily consisted of the elderly and individuals with disabilities. So once the Affordable Care Act was initiated, medical assistance looked at implementing other categories where other individuals can jump on who are low income. And those categories include children through the age of 18, parents, caretakers, pregnant women, and adults ages 19 through 64. So those individuals, if you fit into those categories and you meet the income limits below, you can jump onto Medicaid. So again, primary to the this implementation, you would have to pay into the Affordable Care Act. A lot of these individuals, due to their income, that wasn't realistic or it was going to place a burden on the household. So what they can do is now apply for Medicaid if they fit one of those categories and they're under that income limit. So this category I mentioned is important because it does not have a resource limit. You're jumping onto this category because you are low income, and you're fitting one of those other markers up at the top, but there is no resource limit. So I will get individuals that come to me, they come into money, they're panicking, we're doing a review process, I'm sitting at the table with them, they're like, I'm going to lose my Medicaid, I got this inheritance from my aunt I wasn't aware of, I need to shelter this money right away. And as we're looking at the situation, I'm like, well, you are receiving MAGI, you are between 19 and 64, they're fitting that category. I'm like, you don't need to shelter this necessarily shelter these resources. So it is something to kind of look at because they do panic, think because I'm on Medicaid, I need to shelter. You might not, depending on your category. What I do ask them though is if they are applying for disability benefits or there's something that might be changing in their life where they would have to jump onto a disability related category, then we would look at whether or not we need to shelter. Some individuals just shelter proactively even though they are receiving the MAGI category and don't have to. So this one comes up often. So this category is children with special needs, which is also known as PH95 or loophole coverage. So this category provides full medical assistance benefits to children up to age 18 if they meet the following criteria. So they have to meet the disability requirements and do not receive supplemental security income. So there's they meet medical assistance disability requirements and they aren't receiving SSI. It's considered a loophole insurance, and the reason why that is because children with special needs category is authorized only after eligibility for all other MA categories have been explored. This category is kind of at the end of the medical assistance cascade. So only the child's income is counted, not the parents. So when the child's being reviewed for social or medical assistance, they're usually not eligible because mom and dad have income. So they're excluded from all, pretty much every category of medical assistance. Well, then they get to this PH95 loophole coverage where they kind of at the bottom of the cascade and they look and say, well, we're not going to count mom and dad's income now. You have a verified disability. We are going to, place you into this category because we're only looking at your income. And more often than not, the child does not have income in the picture. So it is a loophole. That's why they refer to it as a loophole coverage. With this type of category, you could be presumptively placed into PH95. So obviously, there does not need to be verification through the Social Security Administration because you are not receiving SSI as one of the requirements. You will be reviewed by the Department of Human Services Medical Review Team. And like I said, that is just to get you into the category. It's not as a strenuous application process as to jump onto a disability benefit through Social Security. And documentation must verify the child's medical condition, documenting the severity of the impairment. So I put the handbook reference there for PH95 category of medical assistance. The income is only looking at the child's income, and that's at 100% of the federal poverty level. Resources, children with special needs in this category under 21 and therefore exempt from MA resource requirements. A lot of categories of medical assistance, if there is a child under the age of 21 in the household, they would be exempt from a resource test. Yes. For the what? The timeline for review, that I'm not sure of. If you're talking about how long does it take to onboard onto the benefit, I think a lot of times individuals in a situation are kind of prompted, whether from the hospitals or, or something along those lines where they have a child with special needs and they need to get them onto the benefit. So it takes 30 days once the application is placed to, for any of these categories to review an individual for coverage. Depending on the severity of the disability, they could put them in sooner, but it typically takes up to 7 or 30 days to get them reviewed for medical assistance. So where it comes into the future planning piece with this is that it does have a termination date, and this occurs once the child turns 18. I get a lot of these cases where once they turn 18, regardless if they're still in school or not, they will lose this MA coverage, this loophole coverage. So they will be presumptively placed into another MA category for 90 days. So they're not just going to be dropped without coverage. While DHS reviews them for another category. So at this point in time, the family is encouraged to apply for Social Security, Supplemental Security Income benefits. Remember, they couldn't be on SSI as a minor to qualify for the benefit, but now that they are on turning 18 and they're kind of going off that PH95 loophole coverage, now they could apply for Supplemental Security Income. And so the reason why they do this is because they understand that that child was receiving this disability benefit because of their disability. So they're going to assume that once they turn 18, they may or may not enter the workforce. They may need some type of supplement income coming in. So they have them apply for Supplemental Security Income, gets them some type of cash payment coming in, and it gets them on medical assistance through having SSI. So they can, while they're on hold, under this Healthy Horizons category, they could be getting them onto the medical assistance for SSI category. So usually in this case, after the PH95 loophole coverage ends, their new category medical assistance will probably have a monthly income or resource test. So this is the next category we're going to review is medical assistance for workers with disabilities, or also known as M.A.W.D. And this is it's becoming increasingly popular. We put, through Achieva, we help a lot of people jump onto this category, medical assistance, and it provides health coverage for individuals with disabilities who are employed. So it is kind of a work incentive. It has higher income and resource guidelines. So that category itself, has a higher income cap, has a higher resource cap, which we'll cover here shortly. So if an individual's working and they are working to the point where they are not qualifying for any other category medical assistance, they can jump onto this M.A.W.D. Program and keep their coverage while they are working. If you're on M.A.W.D. program, you could also receive what they call the Medicare Part B premium coverage through the Slim Bear cost sharing, where you could also qualify to have the state cover your Medicare Part B premium. So it's not coming directly out of your SSD payment a month. So that is another incentive of being on the M.A.W.D. category. So a M.A.W.D. applicant must meet the following criteria. be at least age 16, but under 65, so ages 16 through 64, disabled according to Social Security guidelines, or disabled disability verified through the DHS medical review team. So there's that MRT again, where if they're not receiving disability benefits through Social Security, they can get verified through the DHS review through the medical review team. And it typically takes about 12 months of supporting documentation to show that there is a disability present to qualify for this category. They have to be employed and receiving income, and there's no minimum work hours. They can work a couple hours a week and still qualify for this M.A.W.D category. So the income requirements are below 250% of the FPIG, federal poverty guideline, after income disregards. And there are the resource requirements. It has a max of $10,000, which we're going to review here in more detail. So the M.A.W.D income limits are at 250% of the federal income guideline. So an individual on M.A.W.D can make up to $3,138 a month. Single, $4,259 a month married, to qualify for the M.A.W.D benefit. Now, M.A.W.D has what they call exclusions, which I have there. So that SSI exclusion that I showed earlier, where SSI is trying to get your countable income to get you, see where if you're working, what your SSI payment will be. M.A.W.D uses the same calculation to see if you qualify for M.A.W.D. So they do that first 85 and then half the remainder to see if you get under that $3,138 to qualify for that specific category. So there are incentives with this category where even if you are over that $3,138, they're going to apply those disregards, again, that first $85, and they're going to half it to see if they can get you under that $3,138 to qualify for the category. So only half of any earned income is not counted. Income of the spouse, whether the spouse is applying or not, is counted. And so in that case, DHS will apply a two-person household limit for eligibility. M.A.W.D does have resource limits. It's $10,000 for single or married. So there's a little more wiggle room for saving money in your personal accounts that you might not necessarily have to shelter, but you still have the option of sheltering if you would happen to go over the $10,000 into an ABLE account or into a special needs account. They count the resources of the individual applicant and their spouse living with them. This particular category does not have the resource exclusion. If someone under the household is under 21, there's no resource exclusion. There is that resource test of $10,000. The resources in this case exclude primary residence, ABLE accounts, special needs trust. You can have one vehicle, and there's a lot more exclusions that they apply. So the caveat with the M.A.W.D program is that it has a premium, because this is typically one of the last categories that an individual could be reviewed for to remain on medical assistance if they're working. The DHS is looking for them to pay a premium of 5% of their countable income. So once those exclusions are applied, where they take that first $85 off and then they have that remaining amount, that whatever that remaining amount is, that 0.5, they take the 5% of that, and that's your monthly premium to pay to maintain the benefit. So there is a monthly premium that you would need to pay in order to continue to receive M.A.W.D. But no monthly premium is required if that monthly premium is under $10, or the individual can show good cause where they should not need to pay, whether medical issues, loss of employment, etc. Because it's only 5% of their countable income, M.A.W.D premiums could be anywhere from, I've commonly seen from $50 to $100 a month for the individual to maintain the benefit. So when determining the M.A.W.D premium amount, the income of the non-applicant spouse is not counted. They're just looking at the applicant's income. And when both spouses are applicants, each premium is determined by their own net income. So, husband and wife are working, they're getting their own review for their own M.A.W.D premium. M.A.W.D does do retroactive coverage, up to 3 months of retroactive coverage, but you must meet the requirements, including work requirement, in those retroactive months. So you can go back 3 months for coverage, but you had to be working and meeting the disability requirement in those prior 3 months of application. Annual income in retroactive months is used to determine the retro premium, actual income, and retroactive coverage is not approved until the retroactive premium is paid. So workers with job success is a relatively new category medical assistance. I put this with M.A.W.D because it's kind of an addition, an expansion of the M.A.W.D category. So it's a new category medical assistance, and it's for individuals who are on M.A.W.D who are on the benefit for 12 consecutive months that continue to meet all the eligibility criteria except for income. So they're on M.A.W.D, they're exceeding that $3,138 income limit, even with the exclusions. So they're now reviewed for workers with job success if they had been receiving M.A.W.D for 12 consecutive months. So in this case, the income limit is higher for both the individual and the married, the couple. So it's $7,530 as opposed to $3,138. But again, they would have to be receiving M.A.W.D for 12 consecutive months, have their income increase to the point they're no longer eligible for M.A.W.D, and then be reviewed for the workers with job success categories. One of the nice things about workers with job success is the resource limit. You have to be under $10,000 to qualify for workers with job success, but once you are in, the categories, the resource category is waived, so you could have as many resources as you want and still qualify for workers with job success. So $10,000 to qualify, and then once you qualify for workers with job success, the resource limit goes away, so there is no resource limit with much higher and forgivable income limits to maintain workers with job success. So it's new. We're seeing some people finally jumping onto this. It's being received very well. So just a brief overview of some medical savings programs that are out there that we commonly see when we are working with individuals with benefits planning or special needs, future planning. Medicare savings programs pays for Medicare Part A and Part B deductibles and co-insurance. So we're going to just briefly review three of them, and it's a Healthy Horizons category, which is QMB Plus, the Qualified Medicare Beneficiary, which is QMB, and Specified Low Income Medicare Beneficiary, which is SlimB. So the first one, which is Healthy Horizons, and this is full Medicaid coverage for individuals 65 or older or individuals with permanent disabilities. So with this, it's getting that full MA coverage, but you're also receiving payments for your Part A and your Part B premiums. So under this category, you get the full coverage because certain buying categories, you're only getting the premium paid. You're not getting that full MA coverage. But you, in this specific category, if you're meeting the criteria, meaning you're 65 or older or have a disability, you can qualify to get full MA coverage with your Part A and Part B premiums covered with the income limits listed there. So as you can see, single to qualify is $1,255, married $1,704. This Healthy Horizons category does have a resource limit, and it's $2,000 for single and $3,000 for married. So they are using SSI related categories and deductions. So if you are over that $1,255, they will apply that same calculation that they, that I showed you for the SSI to determine their SSI amount. So there are incentives to get you below that $1,255. So the Qualified Medicare Beneficiary, or QMB, is individuals who qualify for this category eligible for payment for their Medicare Part A and Part B premiums and cost sharing. So I have their income and resource limits listed there below. So it's $1,255, similar to the Healthy Horizons. But if you look at the resource limits, it's much higher. So single, $9,430. Married is $14,130. So this is a category that can cover your Part A and your Part B premium. So with your Part B premiums not coming out of your monthly SSDI check, the state will then cover that for you. So it gives you an extra, couple, bucks a month to work within your budget. So it's not coming out of your SSD. And the final Medicare savings category is SlimB. This is just for coverage of your Medicare Part B premium only, and this does not include full Medicaid coverage. So a lot of individuals can have another category medical assistance and then qualify for this category as well to cover that Medicare Part B premium. Again, so it's not coming out of their monthly SSDI check. There's the income and resource limits for this particular category. It's pretty similar to the QMB. Applies SSI-related deductions to get to your countable income. So, if you are over that $1,506, you could possibly still be reviewed for the benefit with those exclusions. So I'm going to briefly go into waiver. I have my waiver expert here, Nancy McMillan. She is sitting over there. So any specific questions to this, I work more of the financial component with waiver in terms of eligibility, but we're going to do a review because waiver itself can be, an hour or two of a training. So we're going to just kind of go into what waiver means, the different categories, and then the resource and income limits for this particular for the waiver category. So basically the federal government, when it comes to waiver, waives medical assistance Medicaid rules for institutional care for the state to utilize the same funds to provide supports and services for people in their communities rather than institutionalization. So basically institutional requirements are waived for home and community-based services. So to receive that care and that support in the community at home as opposed to in a brick and mortar institution. Special programs, these are special programs that fund long-term care support services for people with various disabilities to help them live in the community. And there are different types of waivers depending on your disability or age. So there's intellectual disability, autism, physical disability, and older adults. So broke it down into the two different categories of waiver here. There's home and community-based waivers, which are administered by the Office of Developmental Supports. These include consolidated person, family, directed supports, community living waiver, and adult autism waiver, age 21 and above. And there's the community health choices waiver, which is through the managed care system. And that's administered and monitored by the Office of Long-Term Living. And that also includes the OBRA waiver, age 18 to 59. So when it comes to waiver, all those categories and the when we're looking at benefits counseling and future planning and sheltering, resources, this is what comes into play here. So we have the waiver income limits. So for one individual is $2,829 in the year 2024. Only the applicant's income is counted with waiver, and there's no income deductions or incentives. So if you're over, you're over. They don't apply those SSI incentives like the other categories do, where they're, deducting $85 and then halving it. If they're looking at the income, if you're over waiver, you're over the income limit. The waiver resource limit is $8,000. This is considered a $2,000 limit with a $6,000 disregard. And they can use, if married, they can apply spousal impoverishment rules. When it comes to waiver eligibility with income and resources, there's typically a 5-year look-back period to determine if the applicant sold or gave away resources with less than fair market value. This could be counted against you when they are making that determination for your financial eligibility. And medical assistance for workers with disability, which we covered earlier, has a loophole for waiver recipients. So if you're a waiver recipient who is working and you happen to be over that $2,829 resource cap, and like I said, waiver is not very forgiving in terms of that eligibility review. If you're over, you're over. That individual then can enter the medical assistance for workers with disability category through their loophole, get the higher income and resource limit, but maintain all your waiver services as well. So as opposed to having that $2,829 income limit, you're working, you're over that limit, you can now be reviewed for the M.A.W.D category with that $3,138, gives you more wiggle room, and plus you get to keep all of your waiver services while you're receiving M.A.W.D. The only caveat with that is you will have that M.A.W.D premium we discussed, but you're keeping all your waiver services, which you would not otherwise have because you're over the income limit. So, yeah.
What's the implications for that 5-year look back? Is that something where they have a substantial amount of money, maybe not in a trust, that then they give away, that the waiver system may look at? More information about that?
They're when they're looking at the 5-year look back, and Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong here, they're primarily looking for that nothing was gifted or transferred. Nancy, can you?
Well, as far as I know, there is that 5-year look back does go back to the child as well. So if there was money in the child's name given to them, through UTMA or UGMA, one of those childhood accounts, that will be counted. And but those transfers, you can actually transfer some of that into a special needs trust, and if it's a smaller amount, it can go into an M.A.W.D account. So those are acceptable sheltered accounts that they immediately, they're not gifted as long as they go into an M.A.W.D or a trust, special needs trust.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. All right, so with medical assistance, those categories we just reviewed, how to apply. You can apply online through the Compass website. I have the link there. You can apply in person at your local county census office. So I have the link to identify your local CAO based on your zip code. You can actually call and complete a medical assistance application for certain categories over the phone. You can mail your paper application, which is a PA 600 application for benefits. That will review you for Medicaid and SNAP together. And with any of these options, supporting documentation must be provided. All these applications can take up to 30 days to process. So if they don't have all the information included, they'll have to pen for it. It could take longer than 30 days. And just when we're talking with individuals about through benefits planning, what category they're receiving, or if they want to know through a future planning perspective, will they need to shelter, but they don't know their category medical assistance. If I don't call with them to get it, or I can't determine it looking at paperwork, they can refer to their PA 162 eligibility notices. It is on there. They can go to their My Compass account online. There's that link again. If they have placed an application online, that will tell them their category medical assistance, or they can call the PA Statewide Customer Service Center. I have the number there. They can call them and they can let them know their category and if there are any particular income and resource requirements for their category medical assistance. Thank you.